Hello, and very warm welcome to all of you. I'm your host Girish Kulkarni, and I welcome you all to this discussion session on overall assessment of 4 years of GST. So, this is about look back and way ahead. We have just completed yesterday 4 years of GST implementation. On 1st July 2017, GST was started as a new law of indirect taxes after subsuming more than 20 laws, and it was one of the biggest reform of indirect tax regime in India. So, or rather, entire legislative framework of India. So, this is an apt moment to assess what went right, what went wrong, how that can be improved, and overall assessment of 4 years of GST on the occasion of fourth anniversary of GST law. So, without wasting any time, let's start. Um, Before I start, one important statement which was made by Zhou Enlai, the first Chinese premier, a very learned scholar in the year 1972, and he delivered that statement on French Revolution. It was in 1700s. So after about 200 of years, when this Chinese premier Zhou Enlai was asked, uh, how can you assess the French Revolution, then he replied saying that it is too early to tell. So whenever there is a drastic change or a revolution or remarkable paradigm shift in any scenario, we should give a proper time to assess that particular change, and it should not be too early to judge it. So with that note, let us, but obviously it gives us an important opportunity to assess what are the points which we can improve on in the future to make it a better legislation. So from that aspect, this video is being recorded. Uh, Before I actually start with the session, in front of you on the screen, you have our Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, who yesterday delivered a tweet on his Twitter handle saying that GST has been a milestone in the economic landscape of India. It has decreased the number of taxes, compliance burden, and overall tax burden on common man, while significantly increasing transparency, compliance, and overall collection. 4 years of GST. So, on the occasion of fourth anniversary, he delivered this tweet, his perception about the entire change in this indirect tax regime in one sentence, uh, saying that let us see what people have to say about it. So there was this social media poll conducted not by us, by one renowned institution, uh, wherein it was asked to the people that do you foresee reduction of litigation under GST regime? So to answer this, 77% of the people, which is a huge majority, say that we don't foresee any reduction in the litigation. So that is one important point to note here, that people still feel that the complexities which are involved and the various aspects those are associated with GST law, its interpretation, and the way things are being carried out, uh, there are very less chance that there will be a reduction of litigation, which was one of the prime important aspect uh, to bring GST amongst all others. Secondly, uh, this is a right platform wherein we can obviously assess what were the expectations from GST before the GST was brought in. And if we try to assess that, we will find that there are about 4 to 5 major aspects which were considered as the main expectations behind GST. One of which is one nation, one tax. Obviously, there was a multiplicity of taxes form of central excise, central sales tax, then state value-added taxes, various other taxes, entry tax, entertainment tax, luxury tax, and various compliance mechanisms for each tax, various a lot of things which were associated with multiplicity was a complex thing for a taxpayer to operate simply or to have a easy way to operate the business, which we call ease of doing business nowadays. So that was one of the important aspect, which we look at it as an expectation before the GST launch. Then seamless flow of credit. There was a lot of blockage in the credits earlier before GST. We consider service tax negative list. Then if we see various different acts like excise and VAT, then interchangeably between the different laws, eligibility of input tax credit was not available. So all that resulted into cascading effect and ultimately price rise. So that was another important aspect which we expected from GST, that it should be in a position to resolve this cascading issue and ultimately reduce the price of the goods and services which are to be consumed. Then certainty of tax positions. So a lot of times there was confusion. To take classic example, in pre-GST regime, software or construction of a commercial complex or a residential complex or a house, or there were certain issues which were involved with such kind of activities, whether those are goods, whether those are services, whether being goods, state authorities should charge VAT, whether being service, should the central government charge levy service tax. So those were the complex issues, and there was no certainty of tax positions. Various times our honorable courts have to take a stand and implement the spirit of law over there. So certainty of tax position was one of the important expectations from GST, and obviously simplified compliance, because as I told, various taxes came with various compliances and various due dates, various you know audits, assessments, and again multiplicity into those compliances was resulting into a chaotic situation for a taxpayer, and hence there was a requirement for simplified compliances. So these were the basic expectations from GST when the system decided to subsume those 90/20 plus taxes into one tax, which is called as goods and services tax. So that was about expectation. But what are the teething issues, or what are the gray areas which are still there, which were faced by the taxpayer community when GST was made applicable? So one important aspect was transitional credit, and as we all know that till after couple of years, more than 2 3 years, still people and taxpayer were finding it difficult to actually claim these transitional credits, the credits which were coming from the old tax regime to the new tax regime. There were technological glitches. The system was not ready to allow initially, and as the people were not having clear idea as to how to take it. There were issues about that. Even if there were three classes, actually class one who wanted to take it but could not take it because of the technological glitches, class number two who did not take it because of the lack of information about the provisions, and third who were successful in taking the transitional credits. But the first two chunks was a really issue for GST. So that was the first important issue. Then the fate of exemptions. Earlier tax had certain benefits in terms of various reliefs, tax reliefs, or tax haven period, which were never continued in GST. And GST has its own process of giving exemptions. So earlier tax benefits were denied. Also, certain uh, exemptions were denied to be carried forward in the GST regime. So those two were the issues. Anti-profiteering on various grounds was considered as unconstitutional because the prime concept of pricing any product or service comes from its demand and supply, and you know having uh, a provision wherein that pricing is governed irrespective of its demand and supply without authority in law sounds little difficult to digest for the trade community, and hence anti-profiteering was again an issue. Then interest and late fees, crores of late fees were recovered from taxpayers, and then amnesty schemes were brought in between couple of times for late fees. But the people who have already paid late fees were never reimbursed those late fees. So somewhere they feel cheated that they could comply in due time by making the payment of late fees, or a little late by making the late fees than the people who never did the compliance and waited for the amnesties or those kind of schemes where there was rationalization of it. So that was another aspect. Then refunds under GST is still a painful area and very litigation prone area, uh, because a lot of situation give us a perception that the vested right of input tax credit is being restricted to some extent by denying these refunds in time. Also, the interest component is of utmost importance into this, and that never appears to be the intent of the legislators. But definitely a practical view about the aspect of refund should be considered, which seem to be not happening these days due to a lot of procedural aspects or interpretational issues. So those were the teaching issues. Now, if we try to assess the reality about the scenario in GST, there are a lot of issues which need a little deliberation. And first of it is three-tier unofficial system. When I say unofficial system, there are certain things which are you know, happening without any specified structure. So what is that? So number one is that there is a law which gives you act, rules, notifications, circulars, and its interpretation is one area. The second area is set of authorities, state authorities, central authorities, other associated authorities. And third is GST network. Now, these three aspects in GST are of crucial importance, and they need to be on the same page to have easy operations in GST. But what we see and what we observe is a lot of times these three areas are not in sync. For example, there is provision which says something, and if you go to system, log into GSTN, you will never find an option to do it, or they will bring that option but at a later stage after a lot of gap into what is suggested, what is agreed upon in the GST council or through notification, and then actually available on GST network. Sometimes the law will say something and the authorities will act in a certain manner which probably is governed through circulars. So there is a possibility that those circulars are ultra virus to the act, etc. But yes, that happens all the time. So having in sync with these three tier system is very, very important. And in reality, we don't see as of now a very good sync with all these synchronization with all these three factors. At times, there has been seen an aggressive approach from the authorities. There are certain instances, I am not generalizing this fact, but there are various high court judgments which say that yes, there was aggressive approach and the authorities extended and stretched the powers that they have to such an extent which was not required. The classic example I will give you is the Bihar states Patna High Court judgment in case of commercial steel, where there was a issue with the interest charge on the transitional credit which was brought in by the taxpayer into GST regime, but which was unutilized. So the interest was charged and asked to be recovered from the taxpayer. Taxpayer went to High Court. High Court said that there is a difference between availment and utilization. Those these two terms are not specifically defined in Act. What we understand is credit has been brought in GST law, but it was never offset against the liability. So there is no question of interest. So that is again just one example. Then second example is one of the judgment. I don't recollect the citations as of now, but wherein uh, there was investigation by the authorities, and during that investigation, a liability was agreed upon, paid partially by the taxpayer, and later on the taxpayer filed a writ petition saying that it was never agreed to us and it was forcefully recovered. So, and the court asked the authorities to adjudicate the matter separately and repay the amount of the interest. So, there have been instances wherein this aggressive approach has been seen, but what I personally feel is that maximum percentage of the authorities uh, where we don't face that kind of a challenge, except barring a couple of instances. So, but still that needs to be streamlined to a great extent. Then complex areas and challenges in applying jurisprudence. Now, if we go back to the earlier slides, one important aspect was certainty of tax position. Now, when we say that there are complex areas and challenges still in GST, we mean that certain terms, like for example, in excise regime, uh, areas like manufacture, where though defined in the law, we're having quite a lot of litigations till this point in time, till now. So, are there such complex areas in GST? Definitely yes. Starting from the basic taxable event supply, business, then all other definitions, majority of the definitions, I see that there are various opponents which definitely will lead to increased set of litigations, and that is a concern here. Then lack of training to the authorities. At times we have observed that authorities are overburdened with the work from previous tax regime. Let's say for VAT, uh, local state VAT laws. So they are still not out of the burden of the work, and hence they get very little time to train themselves in GST, to uh, read and you know understand GST provisions, etc. And hence largely they will have to depend upon the circulars which are issued by central as well as state government, and internal circulars wherein there is a guidance given about the procedural part. So merely sticking to the procedural part without applying the natural justice would sometimes lead to a challenging scenario, and that is again not the intent of the legislators. And the biggest challenge and biggest reality issue is GSTN glitches. I think we all are aware of how GSTN has been troubling the taxpayers, troubling the professionals in doing a due compliance or doing any activity since beginning. Since 4 years of since last 4 years also, it has I would say improved to a bit extent, but not completely. And there we need to have important overhauling which needs to be done. So GSTN glitches, the capacity available on GSTN, etc. All those technological framework needs a great overhauling, and it needs to be streamlined in a proper manner. So there is no test of patience of taxpayers as far as this technological aspects are concerned. Now दूसरा जो पोल है हमारा, उसको देखते हैं. तो पोल में पूछा गया था सोशल मीडिया पे, do you feel advanced tax ruling mechanism under GST regime bring in certainty and transparency? So there have been a lot of things which which are said about advanced ruling mechanism, for it not being very transparent, as the authorities which were ex-officials of state government are there, and they're not being a central system, and each state is having their own ex-authorities as ex-officials as authority of advanced ruling, might have a biased view over the issue. That is what is being argued by largely by trade and industry. And the reason is also similar, because if you see, most of the pronouncements given by advanced ruling are pro revenue, and there have been blatant uh, misinterpretations, and on the same issue multiple misinterpretations by multiple various states, or from same states, two different opinions like that has happened, and because of which the people are discouraged to approach advanced ruling authorities. So on being asked about this question, the answer which was given was this: 72% of the people say that it is far from intended objective, and we don't feel that advanced ruling mechanism under GST regime is being 23% feel yes, and 5% can't say. So that is the thing. If we try to assess the litigation in the 4 years, there have been 42 Supreme Court orders, 202 anti-profiteering orders, 1121 orders from various high courts, and 224 appellate authority orders. So, considering that much of volume and the pendency of the litigation before the courts, definitely there will be a huge growth in the number of litigation um, in GST regime, is what we feel from this statistical data. Further, another poll which was taken is that, do you fear GST rate dispute by department in coming future? As there is no GST tariff act as such, uh, sometimes the calls which are taken, also the procedure is, what I perceive is that the procedure of understanding which classification applies to your own goods or services is not clear with the taxpayers. There's a lot of confusion. Uh, Usually, what they do in case of traders, whatever they are receiving from the earlier chain, they are just passing it on. So the proper effort which is required to go into this process of identification of proper classification rate of tax through the mechanism available is not known, and at times we have to rely on custom tariff act schedules given over there for finding the appropriate HSN code or SSC code, and that procedure is known to very little of the population, and hence there is a fear in GST rate dispute possibilities in the future. So 78% of the people, so huge quantum of people, say that yes, department will dispute in future, and this is probably based on the experiences that they have. To give you one example, there was one advanced ruling decision pronouncement in Gujarat, based on which in Maharashtra and Karnataka, few of the authorities started approaching the taxpayer, saying that this rate is not appropriate because there was a advanced ruling in Gujarat. Now you start applying this rate. So let me be very clear. The classification is an exercise which is required to be done by the taxpayer by himself, by assessing all the possible legal possibilities, and then to reach to a conclusion. If the authorities are not in agreement with that, they may always adjudicate, and the matter will get settled through legal framework. But based on some advance ruling, authorities are approaching taxpayer for vague classification issues, then I think that will only create fear in the minds of the taxpayer that whatever classification that they have selected may be wrong. And maximum times it is observed that even advanced ruling authorities have taken a stand which is pro revenue, and higher the tax rate they have got, rather it is a tax that they are collecting from the next chain. But then the logic which is being applied here is that that is another area where people are not very comfortable. Taxpayers are not very comfortable. Then if we think about rates and classification, then few points which we need to understand is that when we have a multiplicity of rates, it is always a complex thing, because the department or the authorities or the revenue will always say that it fits into a, when there is a thin line of distinction or possibility of getting covered into this side or that side, the revenue will always say for higher revenue perspective, from higher revenue perspective, that it will fall into a higher rate category, and the taxpayer would always say the other otherwise. So having I don't know how much this will hold good here in India, but having a single rate of tax like a few other countries, to give an example, UAE VAT law, where the rate is 5% flat for maximum of the commodities, and then there are exempt 10%. But having one streamlined rate would be very easy for taxpayers to understand this classification mechanism, because that won't be an issue. Uh, Current scenario, if we alternatively compare, there are different rates even in the same category of goods. Based on its slight distinctions, the rate would differ. That is a very risky and litigation prone area. So having a single non-complex rate structure is a need of an hour. And also, okay, so we have some political and economical background to our rate structure, that sin tax should be high, taxed at a higher rate, basic necessity commodities at exempt, luxury, etc., and the rate goes higher. That logic is perfectly fine. But then when we have a possibility of one commodity or service getting covered into two brackets, service won't be an issue, but for a commodity, then I think there is an issue, and one needs to give due attention to that process. And also there is a fear of interest collection on the wrong rates if charged at all. So let's say if the government interferes and after 3, 4, 5 years and found out that wrong rates were charged, then probably the interest costs would be way higher. And as I said, advance bidding mechanism was of very little or no help in this manner. Coming to the next and most important point, which we call as a backbone of the GST or any indirect tax or value addition taxation law, is that input tax credit and its free flow. Now, this is a live poll for the viewers. What do they think? Whether there is a free flow of input tax credit in GST regime? The answer would be yes, no, or can't say. And obviously, why? So, the views those have been shared across social media and personal meetings with clients, etc., they still feel that all that blockage of credit, non-availability of credit, reversal of credit, it is killing the spirit of the GST law, because the uh, base or main intention of introducing GST was free flow of input tax credit without too much of hassle to the taxpayers. And what we see is block credit section 17(5), then reversals, and then a lot of issues with input tax credits, restricting it based on how your supplier is not filing returns, based on how the system is not reflecting it in due time. So, a lot of aspects to it. Not a very simple or straightforward free flow of credit, if you personally ask me. So, my answer would be no, there is definitely not a free flow of input tax credit. Issues like, if I'm building a plant, okay, if I'm putting a factory out there, and for that I need construction materials, cement, steel, lot of labor, works contractors, etc., then why am I restricted from availing input tax credit from it? Because entire thing is being used for the business activities. It is in the course and furtherance of business, and basically all other, provided that all other preconditions of section 16 are getting followed, then I don't think there is a need to deny that credit. Similarly, 13-seater more or more than it is allowed, below 13-seater not allowed for a vehicle. What is the logic? I mean, why not 12? Why not 15? Why not 6? So that is those are the logical questions. One needs to know. One, I think there is a huge requirement to streamline this block credit section and overall input tax credit mechanism. So all in all, if you see, we have seen this. Uh, there is also block over and above block input tax credits. There are certain drafting issues which and place of supply mechanism issues which block the input tax credit, and it ultimately adds up to the cost of goods and services. I'll give you one example. Usually, in case of accommodation, in hotels, if a person, let's say, registered in Maharashtra, goes to Goa for business purpose and he stays in a hotel, then hotel will charge C and S tax and not IGST because the specified rules related to real estate or immovable property. The place of supply would be the place of immovable property, and hence the supplier and place of supply being in the same state, C and S would be charged. But if the person is not registered in Goa because he's already registered in Maharashtra, he's just going there for exploring business, etc. And in that particular case, he did not take a registration in Goa. So the C and S tax which is charged is a cost to him, and he is not in a position to avail the input tax credit. Had it been a case that there would have been IGST, there would have been this would not have been this rule, then probably he would have been in a position to avail the input tax credit. And hence all those drafting issues, place of supply issues. Place of supply is something which the law says what place of supply has to be, and not we usually understand what place of supply can be. So those are the hindrances in the free flow of input tax credit, I feel. So finally, to conclude this 4 years of GST assessments, good or bad, positive, negatives, what went nice, what went wrong, I would like to sum up all these things in four, as it is 4 years completion, 4 key suggestions. One, very important, simplification of compliance, classification, and procedural uniformity. There should not be any deviation based on state to state level. There should be a consistency. We just call it one nation, one tax, but there have been states who are issuing circulars that central circulars won't be taken into consideration. We'll assess it in our own circulars. So that is a hindrance again. Simplification of compliance is required. If the returns are designed, then the various schemes like QRMP, IFF, so many things, the taxpayer is not in a position to understand what applies to whom, things like that. Classification, again, I discussed a lot about classification and procedural uniformity. That needs to be done. And for this, I think huge brainstorming is required. And we have great talent in India who have readily all the suggestions, only that acceptance has to be there from government side to accept those suggestions and implement it in a proper manner. Then clarification from government about the various aspects which are unclear, and that comes way, I mean, for example, in case of exports, the zero rated supply is defined, and the definition undergone a change in March 2020, and the clarification came in March 2021. 1 year after the change, the clarifications are coming. How a person is supposed to deal with that? Also, multiple times we have seen that certain changes or applicability of those certain changes is retrospective. Why? There can be prospective change, should be made prospectively, should not be bothered, taxpayer should not be bothered. Then free flow of input tax credit, I talked very much on this. So one nation, one tax, and one rate of tax again. And overhauling of GST law and overhauling of technological framework. This GST network needs to be improved to a great extent. I think all these 4 points combined, by and large, it looks like 4 points, but they have various sub points and a lot of procedural aspects. We combine these 4 points, definitely it would make GST good and simple tax, is what I personally feel. And let's hope on this 4th anniversary of GST that this law will become one of the best laws in the entire globe. And we are hopeful that definitely steps will be taken by the government to simplify GST to another step. And with that positive note, I end my session about this 4 years of GST and its analysis. Thank you so much for your patient listening, and stay tuned with us with Easy GST for You, our YouTube channel. If you have not yet subscribed, please do subscribe. If you like the video, please hit the like button